On a bluff overlooking the Hudson River in Tarrytown, New York, stands a Gothic fortress of gray limestone and red sandstone, Lyndhurst. When it was built in 1838, critics called it Paulding's Folly, an architectural joke, a medieval nightmare transplanted to American soil. Today, it stands as one of the finest examples of Gothic revival architecture in the United States. 67 rooms, turrets and towers, pointed arches and stained glass, a monument to 3 families who shaped it over more than a century. But this is not a story about architecture. This is a story about power and its price. 3 men owned this mansion. 3 families called it home. The first was a New York City mayor who went bankrupt trying to build it. The second was a merchant who died just 7 years after doubling its size. The third was Jay Gould, the most hated man in America, the robber baron who crashed the gold market, bribed legislators, and destroyed thousands of lives in his ruthless pursuit of wealth. When Jay Gould died in 1892, his fortune was estimated at $77 million, equivalent to nearly $2 billion today. His eldest daughter, Helen, inherited Lyndhurst and spent the rest of her life trying to buy forgiveness for her father's sins. She gave away 2/3 of her fortune to charity and earned the title America's Sweetheart. His youngest daughter, Anna, married into French nobility. Twice, she lived as a duchess in Parisian palaces, survived 2 world wars, and returned to die in the country she had abandoned. This is the story of Lyndhurst, of 3 fortunes built, and lost, of a mansion that outlived them all, and the sight of 2 deaths that justice forgot. In 1838, William Paulding Jr. stood on this bluff and envisioned something America had never seen. Paulding was born into old New York money. His father had been a member of the Continental Congress. William himself had served as mayor of New York City in the 1820s and as a congressman. He had money, status, connections, but he wanted a country retreat, something spectacular, something that would make a statement. He hired Alexander Jackson Davis, one of America's first professionally trained architects. Davis had studied in Europe and brought back sketches of Gothic castles and medieval monasteries. He saw architecture as art, as a way to evoke emotion, to transport people to another time. Together, Paulding and Davis created Knoll, the original name for Lyndhurst. It was unlike anything Americans had built before. The design was asymmetrical, breaking from classical Greek revival traditions. Towers and turrets rose at different heights. Pointed Gothic arches framed every window and door. Limestone from Sing Sing Quarry, now Ossining, gave the exterior a rough medieval texture. Inside, the entrance hall soared 30 feet high with ribbed vaulting like a Gothic cathedral. Stained glass filtered colored light across carved wooden panels. Hidden compartments and secret passages were woven through the walls, a Gothic fantasy brought to life. The grounds were designed by William Clarkson, a landscape gardener who created sweeping lawns dotted with specimen trees. The estate covered 300 acres of pristine Hudson River property. It was audacious, romantic, impractical. Critics called it Paulding's Folly. Newspapers mocked its feudal pretensions. Other wealthy New Yorkers building estates along the Hudson stuck to safe Greek revival or federal styles. Paulding had built a medieval castle, but Paulding didn't care. He loved his Gothic fantasy. He filled it with paintings and sculpture. He entertained guests. He walked the grounds. For 9 years, he enjoyed his masterpiece. Then, in 1847, William Paulding sold Knoll. The reason? Financial difficulties. The Panic of 1837 had devastated his investments. The cost of maintaining such an extravagant estate was crushing him. He sold to George Merritt, a wealthy merchant, for $68,000, about $2.3 million today. Paulding moved to a more modest home. He died in 1854, just 7 years after leaving his Gothic dream behind. His folly, it seemed, was too expensive to keep. George Merritt had made his fortune in the China trade and merchant banking. He had vision, and he had plans for Knoll. In 1864, Merritt hired Alexander Jackson Davis, the same architect who had designed the original house, to expand it. Davis doubled the size. He added a massive north wing with a soaring picture gallery, a music room, and additional bedrooms. He raised the tower another story. He redesigned the dining room with Gothic vaulting so elaborate it resembled a medieval chapel. The expansion transformed Knoll from a villa into a mansion worthy of European nobility. Merritt also expanded the grounds. He built a massive greenhouse, one of the largest in America at the time, filled with exotic plants from around the world. He added stables, a bowling alley, and service buildings. He renamed the estate Lyndhurst after the linden trees he planted along the entrance drive. The house was now 67 rooms, spread across 39,000 square feet. It was, without question, one of the grandest estates on the Hudson. George Merritt lived there with his wife Julia for 9 years. Then, in 1873, George Merritt died suddenly. He was only in his 50s. Julia stayed at Lyndhurst for 7 more years, but the costs of maintaining such a massive estate were overwhelming. The greenhouse alone required a full-time staff of gardeners. The grounds needed constant care. The house demanded repairs. In 1880, Julia Merritt sold the estate to Jay Gould for $250,000, equivalent to about $7.3 million today. She was relieved to be free of the burden. Jay Gould had other plans. To understand Lyndhurst's third act, you must first understand Jay Gould. Jason J. Gould was born in 1836 on a small farm in Roxbury, New York. His family was poor. He grew up milking cows and working the fields. Labor he despised. At 14, he dropped out of school and taught himself surveying and mathematics. By 23, he was in New York City, working as a stockbroker. What happened next made him infamous. In 1867, Gould joined the board of the Erie Railroad alongside Daniel Drew and Jim Fisk. Their mission: prevent Cornelius Vanderbilt from taking control of the railroad. Gould's solution was brilliant and ruthless. He issued fraudulent stock, watered-down shares that had no real value. Vanderbilt kept buying, thinking he was gaining control, but Gould just kept printing more shares. When Vanderbilt finally realized the scheme, he was furious. He lost $7 million, equivalent to $130 million today. But Gould wasn't done. He bribed New York state legislators with hundreds of thousands of dollars to legalize the fraudulent stock. He recruited Boss Tweed, the corrupt Tammany Hall politician, to protect him. Together, they controlled the Erie Railroad through manipulation, bribery, and fraud. Then came Black Friday. On September 24, 1869, Gould and Fisk attempted to corner the gold market. Their plan was simple: buy up all available gold, drive up the price, and profit massively when farmers sold their wheat and needed gold to settle debts. To make it work, Gould bribed President Ulysses S. Grant's brother-in-law, Abel Corbin, to get insider information and influence Grant's policies. The scheme drove the price of gold from $135 to $163 in a single day. Then President Grant intervened. He ordered the Treasury to sell $4 million in gold, flooding the market. The price collapsed to $133. Thousands of investors were ruined, rich and poor alike. The economy plunged into crisis. Gould escaped with his fortune intact. He had quietly sold his gold holdings before the crash, leaving Fisk and everyone else to take the losses. The public was outraged. Political cartoonist Thomas Nast depicted Gould as a sinister spider, spinning webs of corruption. Newspapers called him the worst man on earth. Religious leaders denounced him from pulpits. Jay Gould knew he was the most hated man in America, and he didn't care. By the 1870s, Gould had turned his attention westward. He gained control of the Union Pacific Railroad, the Kansas Pacific, the Missouri Pacific, and the Texas and Pacific. At his peak, he controlled over 10,000 miles of track, about 15% of all railroad mileage in the United States. He also owned the Western Union Telegraph Company and the New York World newspaper. He had the power to manipulate manipulate markets, destroy competitors, and control information. But for all his power, Jay Gould was lonely. He was not welcomed in society. The Astors and Vanderbilts wouldn't invite him to their parties. Clubs refused his membership. His wealth could buy mansions and yachts, but it couldn't buy respectability. In 1863, Gould married Helen Miller, a woman from a respectable middle-class family. They had 6 children: George, Edwin, Helen, Howard, Anna, and Frank. Helen Miller died in 1889 of pneumonia. She was 51. Jay Gould, devastated, retreated to Lyndhurst. He loved the estate's Gothic seclusion. He loved the gardens. Most of all, he loved the massive greenhouse that Merritt had built. Gould was passionate about orchids. He filled the greenhouse with thousands of rare specimens, one of the finest orchid collections in America. When he wasn't on Wall Street manipulating stocks, he was at Lyndhurst, pruning roses and tending his orchids. Newspapers mocked him for it. One socialite famously said, "Surely a man cannot be altogether bad who is a friend of the roses." But Jay Gould was not a friend of humanity. He cut the wages of his Chinese railroad workers to less than $1 a day while earning millions. He destroyed competitors without mercy. He bribed judges, legislators, and politicians. And yet, at Lyndhurst, he was simply a father and a gardener. On December 2nd, 1892, Jay Gould died of tuberculosis at his New York mansion. He was 56 years old. His fortune, $77 million, went to his 6 children, and Lyndhurst passed to his eldest daughter, Helen. Helen Miller Gould was 24 when her father died. She had spent her childhood at Lyndhurst, playing in the Gothic halls, walking the gardens, attending her father while he tended his orchids. She knew the estate intimately. Unlike her siblings, Helen did not marry young. In fact, she did not marry at all until she was 45. Instead, she devoted her life to erasing her father's legacy. Helen inherited approximately $10 million from Jay Gould's estate, equivalent to about $300 million today. Through careful investing, she tripled that fortune to $30 million. And then she gave most of it away. Her first major act of charity came during the Spanish-American War in 1898. When war broke out, Helen donated $100,000 directly to the U.S. government to supply comforts for soldiers. She donated another $50,000 to establish a hospital at Camp Wyckoff. She visited wounded soldiers. She hosted convalescing troops at Lyndhurst. She funded the American Red Cross and the Women's National War Relief Association. The public was stunned. Here was the daughter of the most hated man in America, and she was America's most generous philanthropist. Newspapers dubbed her America's sweetheart. In February 1899, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a special commendation praising her patriotic donations. Helen didn't stop there. She funded the construction of the Gould Memorial Library at New York University, housing the Hall of Fame for Great Americans. She donated the new YMCA building at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, $500,000 alongside fellow philanthropist Mrs. Russell Sage. She paid $200,000 for a new building at Fort Monroe for the U.S. Army. She gave generously after the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and the 1921 Texas floods. She endowed scholarships at Vassar College and Rutgers, and at Lyndhurst itself, she transformed her father's Gothic mansion into a center for social welfare. Helen opened the greenhouse to the public 6 days a week. She built a bowling alley and recreation center with a dedicated space for a sewing school that taught local women a trade so they could move out of service and into their own homes. She established Woody Crest, a fresh air charity and home for physically handicapped children near Lyndhurst. She held free carpentry, sewing, and cooking schools for disadvantaged children on the estate. She planted over 500 rose bushes in a new rose garden. Pink roses, her favorite. Helen earned a law degree from New York University School of Law for Women in 1895 so she could manage her own finances without relying on male trustees. She was one of the first women in America to do so. She was active in the American American Bible Society and the American Tract Society, writing and distributing religious tracts translated into over 20 languages. She was fiercely patriotic, deeply religious, and politically conservative. When the Russian Revolution happened in 1917, she became a vocal anti-communist, warning of the dangers of Bolshevism to American values. For decades, Helen Gould was the world's most famous spinster, the wealthiest unmarried woman in America. Then, in 1913, at age 45, she shocked the nation by announcing her engagement to Finley J. Shepherd, a minor railroad executive in the Gould system. The wedding took place at Lyndhurst on January 22, 1913, the 50th anniversary of her parents' wedding day. A special train brought guests from New York. Flags flew in the village of Irvington. The house was filled with flowers. Finley Shepherd was a handsome, stalwart figure in the best tradition of the YMCA, devout, hardworking, and devoted to Helen. Their marriage was, by all accounts, genuinely happy. The couple could not have children of their own, so they adopted three: Finley J., named after Finley Shepherd, and J. Gould; Olivia Margaret, named after Helen's dear friend Mrs. Russell Sage; and Helen Anna, named after Helen and her sister Anna. They also fostered a boy named Louis Seaton. Lyndhurst came alive again with the sound of children. Helen continued her philanthropic work until her health declined. In 1932, she suffered a stroke. The Great Depression devastated her trust income. The New Deal infuriated her. She became increasingly reclusive and paranoid, convinced that atheism and communism were destroying America. On December 21, 1938, Helen Miller Shepherd died of a stroke at her summer home Kirkside in Roxbury, New York. She was 70 years old. She was buried in the Gould family mausoleum at Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx. Lyndhurst passed to her younger sister, Anna. Anna Gould was the baby of the family, born in 1875. While Helen stayed in America and devoted her life to charity, Anna dreamed of Europe. On March 14, 1895, at age 19, Anna married Count Boniface Boni de Castellane in Manhattan. He was a French aristocrat, charming, elegant, and spectacularly irresponsible. The marriage was a disaster. Boni de Castellane burned through Anna's fortune at an astonishing rate. He spent over $150,000 on parties. He built a pink marble palace in Paris. He bought carriages, yachts, and racehorses. Time magazine later described it as an 11-year phantasmagoria of pink marble palaces and $150,000 parties, during which the Parisian gay blade skated through more than half of her inheritance. Actually, it was closer to 2/3. Anna gave birth to 4 children during the marriage: Boniface, called Boni Jr., George, and twin daughters Hélène and Violet. In 1906, Anna finally divorced Boni on grounds of infidelity and financial abuse. 2 years later, to the horror of her family, Anna married again. Her second husband, Élie de Talleyrand-Périgord, the 4th Duke of Talleyrand. He was Boni's first cousin. Her family was appalled. Not only was the Duke descended from a famous French dandy, his only brother had divorced another American heiress after just 2 years of marriage. But to everyone's surprise, the marriage worked. The Duke and Duchess lived quiet, dignified lives in their Parisian palaces. They had one daughter, Hélène Violette, born in 1915. Anna became a fixture of French high society. She was awarded the Cross of the French Legion of Honor in 1932 for her charitable work in France. But tragedy struck in 1929. Anna and the Duke's son, Howard de Talleyrand, age 19, shot himself at their home in Paris. His parents had refused to allow him to marry his fiancée until he turned 21. He shot himself because we refused him permission to marry, Anna told the press. We wish to emphasize that we had no objection to the girl, but only opposed the marriage because of our son's age. Howard lingered for 11 days before dying. Anna was devastated. In 1937, the Duke himself died. Anna, now 62, was a widow. When World War II broke out in 1939, Anna fled France and returned to America. She took up residence at the Plaza Hotel in New York City and spent summers at Lyndhurst, the Gothic mansion where she had played as a child. During the war, she auctioned off the famous orchid collection that her father had built. Over 5,000 plants worth $75,000. The proceeds went to the American Red Cross. In 1945, Time magazine reported the Duchess de Talleyrand, chic and spry, announced that in giving up the collection, which blooms in a 2-block-long greenhouse on the Gould estate in Tarrytown, she will save 75 tons of coal for spring heating and free 9 gardeners for other work. After the war, Anna returned to France full-time. She brought much of her French palace furniture with her and stored it at Lyndhurst. The house was filled floor to ceiling with gilded chairs, ornate mirrors, and Baroque paintings. But Anna herself lived simply. When she stayed at Lyndhurst, she slept in her small childhood bedroom in the tower, the same room she had occupied as a little girl. In 1961, at age 86, Anna Gould, Duchess de Talleyrand-Périgord, died in Paris. Her obituary in the New York Times read, "The Duchesse de Talleyrand-Périgord, youngest daughter of railroad financier Jay Gould, died today in Paris, where she had lived most of her life." She is entombed in Passy Cemetery in Paris, alongside her second husband. Before her death, Anna had made a final, crucial decision. She bequeathed Lyndhurst to the National Trust for Historic Preservation. In 1965, Lyndhurst opened to the public as a museum. When the National Trust took possession, they found the house frozen in time. The Gothic hall still soared with its original ribbed vaulting. The stained glass glowed with colored light. Alexander Jackson Davis's architectural drawings and furniture designs were still in the house, priceless artifacts from America's Gothic revival movement. The greenhouse, though deteriorating, stood as a monument to Jay Gould's love of orchids. The bowling alley Helen had built, the rose garden she planted, the hidden passages and secret compartments Davis had woven through the walls, all of it remained. Today, over 50 original pieces of furniture designed by Davis are still at Lyndhurst, the most comprehensive collection of Davis furniture anywhere in the world. The mansion has been used as a filming location for dozens of movies and television shows, including the Gothic soap opera Dark Shadows and HBO's The Gilded Age. It is a National Historic Landmark, and it stands as a testament to 3 American families who rose and fell with the tides of fortune. William Paulding, who built a Gothic dream and went bankrupt. George Merritt, who doubled its size and died 7 years later. And Jay Gould, the robber baron who bought respectability with roses but could never buy forgiveness. His daughter Helen spent her life trying to erase his sins through charity. His daughter Anna fled to France, married into nobility, and lived as a duchess in exile. But Lyndhurst outlasted them all. Walk through its Gothic halls today, and you can still feel the weight of history, the ambition, the wealth, the tragedy. Stand in the entrance hall and look up at the ribbed vaulting that William Paulding commissioned in 1838. Walk through the picture gallery that George Merritt added in 1864. Step into the greenhouse where Jay Gould tended his orchids, seeking peace from a world that hated him. Visit the rose garden where Helen Gould tried to plant forgiveness. And remember Anna, the Duchess who crossed the Atlantic one final time to give this house away, to preserve it, not for her family, but for all of us. Lyndhurst, 3 families, 3 fortunes, 3 fates, and a Gothic mansion that stands as a monument to the Gilded Age, to its grandeur, its greed, and its ghosts.